So for this example, we're going to look at Australian dollar, the whole group. So let's take the same amount of data, or we'll start from the same date here. Select the brush. Let's say around 10 to 12th of March. So that would put Australian dollar USD at a +1 for Australian dollar. Next up, Aussie Swiss franc. Where were we? Around here. Very clearly a +1 for Aussie Swiss. And Australian dollars, Japanese yen. We would be around here. So very clearly an upflow there as well, +1. Australian dollar, Canadian dollar then. Very clearly an upflow as well. So again a +1. This one, well, we don't have to say much about this because it's so clear. Again a +1. Now we're going to the inversed pairs. So if Australian dollar is strong, the flow should be down, which is exactly what it is. So a line around there, +1. And then finally, let's look at the flow here, also +1. So let's count. We have a +1 and another +1, that makes 2. +1 makes 3, +1 makes 4, +1 makes 5, +1 makes 6, and +1 finally makes 7. So Australian dollar is a 7. Very, very strong. So as I mentioned in the last video, while you go over these pairs, you can already guess like which pairs are interesting to trade later on. So two things are interesting when I look at the Australian dollar group. One is that some of these pairs are very, very strong. Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar, very strong uptrend. Australian dollar, Swiss franc, very strong uptrend. Australian dollar, Japanese yen, very strong uptrend. And then Aussie CAD, Aussie USD, Euro Aussie, Pound Aussie, all a little bit less. Still very clear that Aussie is strong, but all a little bit less. So there's 3 pairs or 4 pairs that are a little bit different than the other 3. So the second thing that's interesting is, can I trade this anytime soon? Because on Aussie Swiss franc, hardly a pullback. Hardly a pullback on Aussie yen. Hardly a pullback, if a pullback at all, at Aussie New Zealand. Just a little bit of a pullback on Aussie USD. Just a little bit of a pullback on Aussie CAD. Hardly or any pullback at Euro Aussie, and hardly any pullback, if anything at all, on Pound Aussie. So even though they're not even all looking quite similar, we can already tell that there's not much pullback there. And again, this is actually not part of this lesson, but it is something interesting that you will become good at once you do this more often and you become more experienced. You can already, by doing this exercise of finding the money flow and establishing your own strength numbers, you will already get a feeling of which pairs are interesting to trade today. And again, you still have to do the whole analysis step by step. So you go over all of these groups one by one by one. Then you do all of your MPA principles as taught in the Mastering Price Action course. You apply all of that, but you will see as you become better at this that once you take all these steps, very often the pairs that you already had a hunch about, those are the ones that really come forward as very good pairs for that day. So yeah, I hope that makes sense, and let's have a look at the next example.